All right. Welcome to Clozer Cult podcast. My name is Alma Merrill. I'm here today with the lovely Erin Mehler. Say hello, Erin.
Hi.
So we are here to help you guys in your real estate closer/sales needs and desires. And I thought it was a phenomenal idea to have Erin Mehler here with us today. Erin and I are in the studio together, and we are rocking, just the two of us.
We are
doing a podcast this morning, and we just had our first test fail, so we had to start all over and restart. So here we are. We're doing this. There's no bones about us screwing up. So
it's kind of like life, right?
Kind of like life. So I have a question for you. Have you been surprised with how enthusiastically people have responded to you and your story? Kind of here, like locally and in real estate?
Yeah, absolutely. And even to hear you say how enthusiastically people have responded to your story, I'm like, really? Yeah, that surprises me a little bit.
Tell me a little bit more about that. Why does that surprise you?
It surprises me because like if I step outside of me just being me and I look back at some of the changes and like the transformation that's happened over the last few years in my life, I can see how, people would.
It has been a major transformation, hasn't it?
Yeah, it's been a major transformation. And so I can see how people who before this all occurred, I was in this space where I just wanted to break out.
Right.
I could feel this person that I was inside of me.
Right.
And I didn't even realize how buried she was or that she could be her. And that sounds weird, but, I kind of have this person that I was before who I just learned to absolutely love. She didn't love herself, but me now, I love Erin and who she was her whole life leading up to, being able to break through.
So you said she didn't love herself. I want to get to that in just a second.
Okay.
Just some of the background. Me knowing Erin, we met. What was it? 8 years ago ish.
About 8 years ago, yeah.
8 or so years ago, and in the real estate biz, and we were kind of in the same company, same office, and we hit it off pretty well, really quick, right off the bat, and just kind of had good chemistry. And so when she talks about transformation, when I first met you, I would say it's fair to say your life was quite different.
Yeah.
So let's talk a little bit more about that, like your transformation. Okay. So share with me briefly, like, first of all, share with me briefly kind of where you're from.
Okay.
Originally, because we want to know a little bit more about you. Oftentimes when I hear you or I talk to you or I see you up on stage, I'm always hearing like, okay, this is how I do business stuff. Right. But let's talk a little bit more about Erin and tell me a little bit more about like, okay, I grew up here, I grew up there. This is how kind of my family was, etc.
This is my story.
Yeah. I really want to know your story. Yeah.
I love this because I'm always, I have this desire to give back to people. It's just innately within me. And, like be able to just help people do some of the same things I've done. But I'm always like, my story is not very compelling because, our mutual friend George is like, oh, I was adopted and like I went through this and that and I've almost died all these times. Right. And I'm like, well, I was born to upper middle class, parents who gave me everything I could have ever dreamed of as a child,
And I believe that people relate to you because so many people have been through what you've been through, as far as like, we'll talk a bit more about like your divorce and kind of the deterioration of your relationship and then the rebuilding of who you are.
Right.
Because I think a lot of people have been through that. So it doesn't always have to be this massive story of like, oh, I found my birth mother, or like for me, it was like, oh, I was in a plane crash.
Yeah.
People can't relate to some of that stuff.
You know what? That's really true. And maybe because I am just kind of like a normal person that I don't have this crazy story. It's just like a pretty relatable story to a lot of people, I think. So
which actually is what makes it so compelling.
Oh,
because
never thought of it like that. But
it does, because there's, oftentimes, and I think people get so complacent or paralyzed emotionally or allow their lives to deteriorate substantially when they go through things like you've been through. For me, it was I had this deterioration based on really bad traumas in my life.
Right.
For you, you've had this deterioration and you had to kind of come back to where you were at before and rebuild yourself.
Absolutely.
Kind of on a normal basis. And I think that's why people relate to you on such a high level. It doesn't have to be this miraculous story of, triumph or whatever.
Yeah.
But but here's the thing. Oftentimes I think that's why it's so sensational and why people find such enjoyment in hearing your stories, because you're so relatable and they can go, hey, that's kind of like me.
Yeah.
That's kind of where I'm at.
There's a lot of truth to that, actually. I don't think I've realized that before, but I grew up in Seattle, Washington, in
Really?
Bellevue.
I didn't
Bellevue
know
is a
that.
suburb of Seattle.
I love Bellevue. I've been through
Have
Bellevue
you?
a couple
Yeah.
times. Yeah.
I grew up in Bellevue, right off of Coal Creek Parkway by Factoria. So if you know that area, that's where I grew up, right on. So I grew up in a neighborhood called Newport Hills until I was in 7th or 8th grade. And then we moved to Newport Shores, which is a waterfront neighborhood on Lake Washington. Yeah.
Okay.
So
So when you say you grew up upper middle class,
it was
it was very nice.
It was really, and it was about the time I was in junior high, middle school, and going into high school. My dad owned a business. He owned a media production company, actually.
Really? Oh, that's
and he
cool.
was an innovator in his industry, which is really cool. He was one of the first. He and his business partner were kind of the company that took. They produced employee training films, is what they specialized in, and they produced films that probably a lot of people listening to this podcast, if you've ever had a job where you watched like customer service training videos, they produced a lot of the films that are still used today.
Really?
And they took the old, like, boring training video and they made it funny and interactive and short.
It's like our local Stringham real estate school, right?
Yeah, exactly.
They took the boring real estate classes and made them really
like
fun
that.
and put them online and made them like
Right.
exciting and fun to watch.
And this was all in the early 90s. So you see, like, there's a book called Fish about the Pike Place Fish Market.
Oh,
and
yeah.
it's a similar book that's like more interactive. And a lot of the personal development books that we read now are in line with that, where it went from like boring, tedious, like, this is how you succeed in business, to, hey, let me tell you a story and let me involve you in this and engage you in this and teach you something, but make it more fun and relatable and entertaining. So they kind of innovated that market.
Meaning your dad,
my dad and his business
company.
partner. Yeah,
Okay.
they would just produce a film and then mass distribute it, and had a lot of success in it. And so.
Wow.
About the time that I was in high school, they really started to do well financially, but they're really good at hiding it from us, Like I'm always like, we were like the neighborhood, or we were the house in the neighborhood that had an antenna on the roof and didn't have cable. So I'd go to my friend's house to watch Nickelodeon or, whatever.
So they still were.
They were humble.
They taught you discipline and
Definitely.
taught you
We had
work ethic
chores,
and everything.
we had responsibilities and things we had to do. So we lived in a really nice neighborhood. When we moved into the neighborhood in 1993, Paul Allen was my neighbor who started Microsoft with Bill Gates and ended up owning the Seahawks. Right. Yeah. I was right across the street from Lake Washington. It was bougie, but I didn't realize it was bougie. And my family was not bougie. But anyway, so it's been really cool to be in real estate here, because that was during the Microsoft boom in the 90s. And a lot of the transformation in real estate values and properties just blowing up in that region happened while I was living there. And so I can remember 10 years ago in Utah being in real estate and telling people what was coming, what was going to happen here, because I watched it with my own eyes happen around this tech boom in Seattle. 10 years later, I'm like, see, I told you, let me tell you what's coming next. Like, don't stop investing in real estate. Don't.
Yeah, something's going to change.
Yeah, I know interest rates are high right now, but you know what? Opportunities to invest are back. They've been gone for the last year and a half. Keep purchasing, keep growing your portfolio, because you haven't seen anything yet in Utah, right?
And I want to get into that a little bit more. Tell me about your mom. How was she?
My mom is amazing. My mom is like she is the mom that was the pinnacle of motherhood. Like, did everything for us, and still to this day, this amazing woman who just does everything for our family.
I was going to say, are you saying this because she's still around? She's going to hear this podcast.
She probably will never hear it, but she's the mom that I don't want to say she did too much. A mother can't do too much, but she is constantly like putting everyone else in front of herself, right?
So very selfless, very loving.
Selfless, and almost a little bit not to a fault, but to her own disadvantage, you know?
Right.
She's in her 70s now, and
Right.
my parents are very young for their age. They act very young. They don't act like they're in their 70s. You wouldn't think they were. But having
Which
gone
is where
through,
you got your tremendous skin.
yeah, from my mom for
From
sure.
Mom.
Thank you, Mom, for that. My mom still to this day has a hard time telling people no. You know, like I've done a lot of boundary work over the past couple years, and I've learned that self-care oftentimes is just simply having the ability to say no and be at peace saying no to someone.
Right.
Because you put yourself before someone else. And my mom has always struggled with being able to do that. She's just such a pleaser and such a giver.
Such a helper.
And sometimes at her own expense.
My dad was like that too. Yeah,
exactly. And so some of that, you know, I learned from her, and it's like, well, of negative things you're going to pick up from your parents. That's not a bad negative to
no,
pick up.
it's not. I mean, you know, self-sacrificial, you know.
Mm-hmm.
But there, like you said, self-care, you know, I mean,
Absolutely.
I think self-care is such a critical aspect of this. You know, I was reading the book by David Goggins. Have you read that one?
I love that book.
And it, what's this slipping my mind? What it's called? Can't Hurt Me.
Yeah.
By David Goggins. And it was fascinating because this guy became an icon and such a help to other people by simply being selfish.
Absolutely.
You know, and I find that to be interesting. He spent his time taking care of himself, making himself better. And then he has become this massive icon for other people throughout, and huge inspiration.
Absolutely. You know what's interesting about that is I had a lunch with a friend, oh gosh, 3 years ago probably. And he's a CrossFit competitor. And I was heavier at the time, and we'll get into that, the weight that I've lost and how I've transformed my health. But
you look fantastic, by the way.
Thank you.
I mean, honestly, when I think back to the 8 years ago when I first met you, versus today and what you've done with yourself, it is just staggering to me.
Yeah.
It's fascinating to me.
It's interesting, and I really want to get into that because
yeah,
I feel like I've figured out finally how to put my health, how to sustain habits lifelong to maintain my health, which is something I struggled with for a very long time. But
right.
I was at this lunch and I was kind of complaining like, gosh, I just keep trying to like lose weight. It was always lose weight, lose weight. That was the phrasing that I would use. And my friend was like, read this book by David Goggins.
Right.
He's like, no more excuses. Like you can come up with excuse after excuse. At the end of the day, you just have to do it.
Right.
And that book is so fantastic for
I love how he says you're like motivation's bullshit.
Oh, absolutely.
He's like, motivation's bullshit. he's like, people need to be driven. Being driven is different.
Yeah. He'll talk about like doing ultra runs with a broken leg and
right.
just
ultra marathons. Yeah.
Ultra marathons. The craziest.
Which ultra
stuff.
is 100 miles, right?
Yeah.
And that blew my mind when I listened to that. I was hurting. I was mowing my lawn while I was listening to that part of the book.
Yeah.
Because it's like 12 hours or something, right? That book, if you have it on Audible. And I was blown away by that part specifically because it caused me pain to listen to his description.
Absolutely.
So tell me a little bit about your kind of adjustment or change into a healthy lifestyle.
Yeah.
And then we'll get into kind of business and those types of things after too.
Okay. So, you know, and I think men can relate to this too. I always think of women because I know women and how we think so well because women just talk about everything. My friends and I have talked about everything for years. And so I'm sure men can relate to this as well. But as a woman right now in the world we live in culturally, it is just shoved down your throat what beauty is.
Right. Oh, for sure.
Just shoved. It's everywhere. I mean, our poor girls growing up, the things that they have to face in regards to what beauty is, and it is all bullshit. It's just...
I have 4 daughters, and it is total bullshit.
It's such bullshit. It's so hard to see the beauty in yourself when you don't look in the mirror and see perfection. Right. That is the society that we live in. And one of my heroes is Jamie Kern Lima. Do you know who she is?
No, I've never.
She started a beauty line, a company. I use it. I should remember that. I'll think of it. But she like totally changed the beauty industry for women. And she has a book called Believe It. It's an awesome, awesome book. And she basically struggled with body image, weight fluctuation and just self-worth. And she went in front of basically like the world of the beauty industry and said, we need to change this. And she was one of the driving voices behind seeing, mannequins of different sizes and women of different like ages and hair color and ethnicity, and just celebrating women's bodies and women's beauty in all different areas.
Let me ask you this. Do you feel like that there's obviously been a body image like push, right, in society where it's become more okay to have the mannequins and do that type of stuff. I'm conflicted on one topic, and I want your input on it, because I feel like there is so many people that are saying or are giving value to people that haven't done the work.
Yes.
So tell me a little bit about that, because it's okay to be who you are and who you want to be, but it's not okay, in my opinion, to praise people that haven't done the work.
Yes.
So what are your thoughts on that?
That's a great way of phrasing it. That's probably the best way I've heard it phrased. My thoughts on this, and I don't know if I'm going to phrase it as well as you do, but I would just caution people to be very careful about whether you're making excuses for behaviors that are hurting you health-wise, or you are just accepting yourself the way you were meant to be, right?
Right.
And there's a big difference between what you deserve, what you're capable of, what you can push for yourself, and just trying to numb the pain of not being able to do that. And there is a lot of language right now saying, just love yourself as you are. But what if you're not how you were meant to be?
Right. What if you're not your best self?
Yeah. What if you for years, I used food as a way to numb myself. People use alcohol, people use drugs, people spend too much money.
Porn.
Like there's so many different ways you can numb the pain in your life. And for me, food was just accessible and easy. And there were days where I'm telling you, like I'd go through Swig and I'd get like a 44-ounce Diet Dr. Pepper and a cookie. And that was like the best part of my day.
Right.
For real.
And being candid, when you say that, it sounds fan-freaking-tastic. But then you go, okay, what's the result, right? What's the end result?
It's the compound effect. If you do that every single day, it's going to stack up. And it's going to, not only are you going to struggle with how you feel when you look in the mirror, but you're going to struggle with how you feel.
So tell me how did you get on this journey? Tell me, what was the defining moment in your life? You're married. How many kids did you have at this point?
Yeah, I have four kids.
You were married?
I was married for 19 years.
For 19 years, the same guy with four kids.
4 kids.
What was the moment? Can you tell me? Because for me, when I got a divorce, I'm remarried now happily and have an amazing marriage, which is fantastic. But when I made that choice, there was this moment, this defining moment in my life that I said, not another second, not another minute, not another hour, not another day, not another week, not another year. I am freaking out of here. I'm done. It's over, period. What was that like for you?
That's a hard question to answer, because I really care for my ex-husband. He's a good person, and I'm not the person to ever point fingers and be like, well, he did this or whatever. Like, we tried and we could not make it work. And it was a hard, awful, I'm not an advocate for divorce. I was married for a long time because I tried to make it work for a long time. And there were certain events and things that happened in the end. I will always take 50% of the responsibility for why my relationship ended.
Right.
But I am the one who had to end it.
Even though you're not an advocate for divorce, are you thankful for divorce in your scenario?
Grateful. I'm so grateful, because I believe that the partner that you are with outside of your relationship with yourself, that is your number one most important relationship, which I heard that for years and it didn't make sense. It makes sense now. The relationships with myself is my number one relationship. My number 2 relationship, and that will have the most impact on my relationship with myself, is the relationship with my partner that I choose to spend my time with, right? And so
I heard a quote that said, I'm going to be the best me for you. And you be the best you for me.
100%. Yeah. Yeah. And it's hard to do that.
Yeah.
Right.
Especially
it's really
when,
hard to do that.
especially when you're, mom, your wife, you have all these callings, you have business, callings, and then you have this, you have to have this, and I don't call it balance anymore because I think balance is bullshit as well.
Absolutely.
But this rhythm that you have to keep,
a harmony,
this harmony, this rhythm that you have to keep and create a life that is sustainable in a long term.
Yeah. Yeah. And you either grow together or you grow apart. And my ex-husband and I grew apart.
Right.
We just did. We were going in completely different directions.
Was it amicable then? Was it like,
No.
okay,
No,
I agree. You agree. It's not.
No.
Okay. It wasn't one of those.
It wasn't
I hear those
amicable.
fantasies, but I haven't experienced one yet.
It wasn't amicable, and it's still really difficult. We're almost a year of being legally divorced. We're over a year of being separated, living in different houses, almost 2 years of like, this is happening. And so it's still pretty recent for me. And we were married for a really long time. So, it's hard on my kids still in moments, but it's the same thing as like being a working mom and having a career, right? I would always say there are ways that my kids benefit and there are ways that it hasn't benefited them.
Right.
Things where I've had to compensate and make up for.
The benefit is you don't have the unrest in the home.
Right.
Right. It's not in the home anymore.
Well, and the benefit is their mom is so happy, and there have been some cycles of abuse and some cycles of like toxic disrespect that have occurred over time that there's a possibility to break that generationally right now. And I'm working on that with them, making sure they understand what disrespect looks like and what respect looks like.
Meaning so that they don't carry it into their relationships
teaching them
in
some,
their future.
some principles and, by example too, of what's possible for them. Right. And to me, that's, I will never say that and my kids were older, they were like at really hard ages to go through a divorce. Right.
Right.
My daughter was 18. She's out of the house now. And, she probably fared the best because she saw the most and she was like, yeah, this needs to happen.
So she understood okay, this was a good idea to do this.
My son was 16 when this all went down. And he loves his mom and he loves his dad.
Right.
So it's been real tough. And my twin girls were 12. So it's just a hard time of life for them. Their brains aren't fully developed. They don't understand. And I have had to have conversations with them even recently that are honest without being disparaging.
Right.
Because they're old enough to ask questions. My therapist told me recently, if they're old enough to ask the question, they're old enough to receive an answer.
Oh, that's an interesting thought.
And you have to be careful about what
I was wondering, like,
how much information
am I saying
them.
too much?
Yeah. Right. And I'm always like, you can be kind, you can be firm, you can be fair, and you can be honest, and you can give them answers that are appropriate for their age, and it really helps them. Even my daughters that are 13 now, sometimes I'm like, I feel like I'm telling them too much. And then I'll ask them after, how was that for you? Do you feel like you didn't want to know, that you didn't want to know? And it's not like I'm telling them crazy things,
That's for you, by the way, if you need any water or anything.
But they'll give me feedback, So I'm really open. The way that I am with people in the office and with you, I'm really open with my kids too. I'll tell them the truth. And sometimes I might leave parts out because they're children, but I will tell them the truth. Trust to me is at the center of everything for me.
There's a cadence that you have now that you didn't have then. Almost a swagger. Let's put it that way.
It's self-love. That's what it is.
I think that's what it is. Yeah. I think it's self-love. I think you crack that code a little bit and you've been playing off of it. So tell me about that. When did you decide, okay, I'm in a place where it's time to do this?
Gosh, I think it's not a fast thing, right?
It was progressive.
It's a progressive thing where you start caring about, and I don't know what it is. That's like, it's just in me, right? But I cared about becoming better. I cared about my growth. I listened to audio books that were personal development. I attend a lot of events. I'm in a company where this is kind of the core of who we are. And one of the things I love about our company is that my value systems align with our company, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so
that's why I've been so like addicted to the environment for so many
Yes.
years. I mean, I've been there almost 20 years, and I
Yeah.
think that the environment is so critical. And that's the other thing is it's hard to leave an environment where you get so much out of it.
Yeah. Yeah, but proximity, right? They always
Proximity.
say you're the sum of the 5 people you spend the most time with.
Yeah,
Who are you spending the
proximity is
most time with?
power. Yeah.
Who do you want to be like? And that's something I
Have
learned
you
a long
gone to
time ago.
Tony Robbins, by the way? You
I
have?
did.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, cool.
Yeah. Um, I I surrounded myself with people who were moving in the same direction I wanted to go, right? And sometimes I don't even know the things that I want until later,
Uh-huh.
but I recognize that other people have them, and that's where I want to be. That's who I want to hang with.
And
right?
some of that stuff refines and changes,
Absolutely.
right?
And I always say, like, I borrow from other people until I know what I want for myself.
So when you're seeking out your why,
Mhm.
you're borrowing other people's whys and other people's reasons until you have your
until
own.
I figured out myself. That's a lot of, like, I think why I'm so open, because I'm like, borrow from me until you figure it out for yourself, because that's what I've had to do for so long. I know I want that, but I don't know what that is. It just feels right to me. It looks good. It resonates with me.
And
I connect with it.
Is that kind of what happened to you when you decided, okay, I'm going to seek a divorce and seek to better myself?
So, really, like, it
Because
came
here's the
down
thing, I feel I don't want to bomb on him at all, right?
Not
Because
at
he's a
all.
great man, great dad, great
Absolutely.
great. At some point you have to realize, okay, both you and I need to grow,
Absolutely.
and we've outgrown each other.
Yes.
And I've seen that a lot in, like, I see that in other relationships that I'm close to in my
Yes.
family and things like that. And I feel like that if that can be amicable, that's awesome. Oftentimes it's not, because there's a lot of hurt, there's a lot of
Mhm.
regret,
Mm-hmm.
and you go, oh man, maybe I could have, would have, should have.
Mm-hmm.
For me, it took me years to get through that could have, would have, should have
Yeah.
phase.
Yeah.
And so my fascination with you is that you've taken kind of all of those moments, I feel like, that are so difficult and destructive and harmful to most
Mhm.
people,
Mhm.
and you've turned them into powers. And you may go, oh, well, maybe you don't see it the way that I see it, Alma, but from my perspective and from the perspective of so many people I've talked to about you, you've taken some of those things that are so difficult and you've turned them into strengths.
Yeah.
So share with me, like, what's your mindset on that? Because for me, I was like, dude, I might. The year after I got a divorce, I made $8,000 the whole year. So,
Yeah.
like, how did you maintain your mindset or utilize it as a powerful tool for you?
I think, oh gosh, I wish I, like, knew the answer to this. I'm pulling them out as we speak, but a couple things come to mind. One, and this I will credit my parents. I don't even know how, but I've never been a person to have a victim mentality. I will always take ownership for where I'm at in life, to a fault sometimes.
Right.
Like one of the things that I'm working on right now is standing up for myself and telling my kids the truth
Right.
about some things, because I've never wanted to disparage my ex-husband. I've never wanted to say negative things, but when someone else is saying negative things, especially to your children about you,
Right.
you have to set the record straight.
Right. There's something that, to be said for just speaking truth.
Totally. And so I've never been one to be a victim, and that's also probably the reason I was married for so long, because I'm an achiever. I want to improve in every area of my life, and so I thought I could change things in the marriage.
Now, when you say I was married so long,
Mhm.
did you feel like there was a moment you maybe should have divorced earlier type of thing?
I think it would be easy for someone to say that, because for over 10 years, I was not unhappy, but there was a hole or an emptiness in that relationship.
Okay.
And one of the things that I will take ownership for is that I should have been honest with him a long time ago.
Interesting.
I tried to control and fix things. I thought that I could make it better. I thought I could create the kind of relationship that I wanted to have with him through therapy and through personal work and development. And I don't know what I thought, Alma.
Did you go through therapy? Did you go through
Oh, yeah.
development of your relationship, all that stuff?
Yeah. So I am a huge advocate of therapy, energy work, personal development, anything that helps you grow. I'm in it, right?
Right.
I believe in investing in myself. I always have. So yeah, I've gone to therapy for years and years, even early in the marriage.
I love it. Our mutual friend George Morris,
Mhm.
who's a huge influence in our lives, has been for years. He says, therapy is nothing more than coaching.
Totally.
Therapy is nothing more than coaching. You just simply you get coached in your marriage, you get
Mhm.
coached in your business, you get coached in your family, you get coached with your kids. And I love that because I've been able to do a lot more therapy in our family.
Yeah.
And I'm like, man, it's amazing. I'll go into therapy with like my daughter and my wife, and we'll have a session together, and it really like takes away those boundaries and
Totally.
changes that environment so that we can have more health and
Yeah.
inside that environment.
Yeah.
So
It is. It's someone
coaching.
coaching you, especially in that kind of environment, how to have productive conversations,
Right.
right? How to have respectful kind where we step out of our injury and our wounds and all the emotions that cause us to say things that are hurtful and mean about, like blame other people.
That we borrowed from
Yeah.
generational curses from
Totally.
our past and our
Exactly.
families and our parents
And it
and
helps us to
our
say like
grandparents.
this is me, and it helps you also figure out how you can influence and change. And I mean how you can, for me, like one of the places I've gotten to is I understand how I can maintain joy
Mhm.
despite anything going on in my life.
Help me understand how you do that. How do you maintain joy when all of the shit hits the fan? You're having all these trials, all these challenges, your heart hurts,
Yes.
your business is hurting, your kids are hurting, your ex-husband's hurting.
Yeah.
How do you maintain that?
That it's been a journey to get there. It's not an overnight thing. It like
And you still
Viktor
have to work on
Frankl.
it.
Yeah, Viktor Frankl. What's his book? The
Man,
Man's Search for
Man's Search
Meaning.
for Meaning.
Yeah. I read that book years ago, and I'm like, how in the world do you find peace, and like how do you live in a concentration camp
Right.
and have this mindset?
Yeah. How do you have
Right?
meaning in
How do
that
you have meaning?
environment?
How do you have purpose in that environment? Right. And I mean, for me, my connection with God, that's the name that I give to my source.
Mhm.
Whatever name you have, but finding a connection with something bigger than yourself, with the source of creation for you. For me, my self-love comes from him, right?
Right.
And that's my source of joy. That's my source of peace. I really had to surrender control. I tried to control and fix, and I was very attached to the outcomes of everything I was doing. I am doing this, and I'm working so hard for this, and this is exactly what I want at the end of it. And if I don't have that, then I've failed or things didn't go as planned. And I really now just have completely shifted the way that I live to, you know what? You just don't know if you have another day. You don't know.
Right.
You don't know what's coming tomorrow. You really don't. And so you have to make today count. And that's how you find joy, is if you live in the moment, in the present, which is such a difficult concept to understand and actually live there. But yesterday's already happened. That's in the past. And when you live in the past, you're holding yourself back, right? And
Yeah.
when
The most harmony I've ever had in my life is when I've released.
you just
And,
surrender.
and I surrendered and I allowed everything to play out the way it was supposed to. And then
Yeah.
obviously you still maintain your goals and your desires and your dreams and all that stuff. But the times that I felt the best in my life and in my business, and I feel like for me, it's a constant adjustment. I'm constantly readjusting, and it's okay. Like I would say yesterday, even though we had this great event and you were a panel speaker, which was awesome. So thanks for doing that. That was rad. I feel like that the day yesterday for me was very unfulfilling. I had a lot of emptiness, and I had all of these. I felt like I was in this muscle memory state, like something had happened to me on that day.
Right.
And I realized that was my mom's death day.
Oh.
And I have a very interesting relationship, or had a very interesting
Yes.
relationship with her while she was alive. And I could not get out of this freaking hole. And I didn't know what it was doing. And Jennifer, my wife, she's like, you know that your body remembers those things, even if your brain can't remember them. Your body and your soul remembers those days and those things, even if you're not consciously thinking of them.
Absolutely.
And so share with me how you've kind of had to get through some of those things, or some methods you've used to do that.
Sure. So it is.
You said give to God.
Yes.
You said
give to God, and then you have to Okay, so I have to backtrack a little bit because I've skipped over this and I've been wanting to bring this up. But the pinnacle, the changing point for me
Mm-hmm.
in everything that's happened with my health, with my ex-husband, is that I finally realized all the lies that I was telling myself. Like, I lied to myself all the time.
Right.
That this was enough, or I was happy, or this,
This is the way it's supposed to
I
be.
overwhelmed myself with commitments in so many different areas to avoid dealing with the things that were hurting me.
Mm-hmm.
I just kept myself so busy I didn't have time to think about it. And once I gave myself time to think about it, and I started telling myself the truth, and it really was this, I got to this point where I was so miserable.
Right.
I was like, God, I've got to figure out what's going on. I can't do this anymore. I am so miserable. And nobody who knew me at the time would have ever guessed, but I was so miserable. And I would pray, I would journal, I have journals where like I'm taking up 3 lines and it's like just fast scribble writing. I'm no longer willing to accept this. And
Right.
George, our friend George, is really good about, he has questions that you'll ask, and he taught this to me. Ask yourself these questions. What am I no longer willing to accept in my life? What does my life look like when I'm in alignment in this area? And so journaling and asking yourself these hard questions, what am I no longer willing to accept? And I can remember one night in particular, I couldn't sleep. I got out of bed. I was just like praying on my knees, like, and in my journal, it's like, I am no longer willing to accept this. I'm no longer willing to accept this. I'm no longer willing to accept this. And I just started telling the truth. And then in therapy, I started telling the truth in front of my ex-husband to my therapist about really hard things that I knew would hurt him.
In front of your ex-husband?
That things that I was unhappy about that I had held in for forever.
Was this while you were still married then? Mm-hmm. Is that what you're saying? Okay. So this is...
Yeah, because I did not want to hurt him. I didn't want to hurt my kids. I would say all the time, I'll just be the martyr. I'll hurt myself over hurting everyone else. And it just got to the point where I could not carry it anymore.
Sacrificial lamb, yeah.
Yeah, and I thought I was doing the best thing. And I'll never say like I should have gotten divorced sooner or this should have. I truly believe that, I have the most amazing 4 beautiful children from this marriage. I believe it was a part of my plan and my purpose. Mm-hmm. I will never say that I didn't love my husband. I did. The type of love that my soul craves, I never would have been able to get to with him.
Interesting.
Right? The
love that you needed to feed your soul.
Yeah.
Wasn't happening there. No, you weren't going to get there.
Yeah. And the love that I needed to be able to give myself, which sounds so interesting, but you can only love someone to the level that you love yourself, right? And so if your partner's self-love is capped out here, mm-hmm. and you are loving yourself up here because of the work that you put into yourself, and you're willing to give that to someone else, but they can only give you what they give themselves, and they won't do the work, and they won't show up for themselves, and they won't surrender to difficulty.
Right.
And take
sacrifice.
and be willing to surrender to pain and to face the pain of their past and the pain of their future and do the work that it requires. If you're growing at this level where your self-love and acceptance is like just like pacing at this fast pace, and your primary relationship with someone else that you need to be able to lean on for support, and they need to be able to lean on you. If you can feed someone else, sometimes if you're not careful, you can become like a feeding tube, right? Someone can latch on to you and you can become a feeding tube for someone else. And when you're a giver and you're that connected to a person, you
Meaning
have to put boundaries up.
Sucking
yes.
their energy.
Sucking is the word.
Their excitement, their
yes.
whatever out
and
of you.
And it's not, people don't do it to you intentionally, right? So at the end of the day, you are responsible for yourself. And so what happened for me is I had to start putting boundaries up. Like, don't cross this boundary. And if the boundary was crossed, I'd be like,
what?
I don't know. I don't know how to get into it without getting way too personal. But
being borderline offensive.
Yeah, exactly. Getting into stuff that's way too private, right? But things. So let's just use a different example, right? Let's use a client example.
Right.
It's a good one in real estate, right?
Okay.
If you have a client who's like, I want to go see these 18 homes. Great. Let's get you pre-approved with a lender. Well, I'm working on it, but I'm not there yet. A new agent is pretty well known for being like, great, let's go look at these houses. And they'll go show 18 homes because they are hungry and they need to be fed. Like, I'm doing something in business, right? That's the level of progression they're at in their business. They're just so hungry for anything that they can get. And some people their self-love for themselves isn't sufficient to fill, what they need. And so they'll take from someone else whatever they're willing to give.
I always feel like when I started in real estate, because I felt like I didn't have a lot to give. I was in a really bad relationship. I would always just be the chameleon. I mean, I would just be somebody else. I'd be somebody. I would act like somebody else. I would talk like somebody else. And I would just, because I couldn't draw from myself.
Right.
I couldn't be me. I had to be someone else in order to have what I felt like I had in order to have success.
Right. And then you become a seasoned agent, and by then you're working with, I don't know, whatever. You have referrals, someone that you've worked with before, and like over time, the value of homes that you're showing, right? You might be more trusted and more respected because of experience and growth.
Right.
You've worked on yourself. You've allowed yourself to experience painful things to become better at what you're doing. And people,
it's very painful to deal with low-end listings too.
Absolutely. Very painful, right? But if you do it, and you
high-end listings are the way to go, people.
You'll grow and you'll learn, right? But you can't come in as a new agent and be like, I work with $2 million buyers. It's way beyond your scope. If you don't, you have to go through the growth process. Yeah. And it's the same thing for all of us.
And I would say jump in
100%
and try to do it, but you're going to learn a lot along the way.
Be okay going through some painful things in your life. Like, here's a critical thing for me. For a long time, I avoided the pain. I didn't want to hurt myself. I didn't want to hurt anyone else. We are taught that pain is bad, that we should run from pain. It is like ingrained in us, right? And
in our bodies. Yeah.
Pain is beauty. Pain is growth. And when you will surrender to the fact that you will learn the most, you will grow the most, you will become who you're meant to be faster when you surrender to the experiences that were meant for you.
I needed to hear this today, by the way. It's, to hear that pain is growth and pain is beautiful. Those are things that I struggle with all the time because we are wired to avoid those pains.
Absolutely.
Whether it's getting on the phones and prospecting, that's a huge thing for me. Everybody sees me and goes, "Oh, you're an amazing prospector." I have so much freaking anxiety every time before I get on the phone, especially if I'm alone.
You don't know how good that is to hear that, Alma.
So much freaking anxiety. It's like when I go to get on the phone, I'm just like, I just don't want to do this. This sucks so bad. Why do I have so much anxiety?
Yeah.
And sometimes it's like, it feels debilitating. Like I'm like, I can't do this. And then once I do it, I'm like so thankful that I did.
Yeah.
I went through that pain. I had that process. And then at the end of the day, I've never looked back at a day of prospecting for 2 or 3 or 4 or 5 or 6 or even, my longest day was 11 hours and I set 20 appointments that day. And that it becomes so much more a part of you if you just go right into the pain.
Absolutely.
They say that buffaloes go right into the storm, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
They go into the storm because they know that what's on the other side, it's quicker to get through the storm if you go straight into it.
Right.
And for me, it's the same thing in real estate, in sales. If you dive head first, you feel the pain, you're going to get that success, the result, the joy that comes out of overcoming that anxiety, that pain, that frustration. Oh, it's so debilitating to me sometimes. That's why a lot of times you'll see me like do it publicly, because it holds me accountable and it gets me actually doing it.
Absolutely.
So,
yeah. And I think that's so important for people here, because I don't think anyone who's watched you prospect at any of our events or on your other podcast, your YouTube channel, I don't think anyone would guess that you felt anxiety, right?
Right.
It's like the rock star that gets on stage that's backstage sweating because they're going to do their 200th concert and they still get nervous. But they show up and they perform and they thrive.
There's this freaking YouTube session that I did when I was calling for sell by owners. And it's like, all right, let's call some for sell by owners. And I can see it. Everybody thinks I'm like calm and collective, but for me, I'm looking at it and going, I'm seeing it on the camera and I'm going, dude, you did not want to freaking do that that day.
No. And I guess maybe like we've talked a lot about this transformation that I've had, and I should probably just tell people, like, I'm 43. I've been in real estate for 11 years. My oldest is 19. I have a 17-year-old, 13-year-old twins. By the time I was divorced, it was 20 years. We had been married 20 years. I got married when I was 21, a month away from 22. So I was very young. And the transformation that's taken place over the last 2 years, really. This is the thing. Once you decide and you make the decision, things happen fast.
Right.
But
you cut off all other options.
Right.
And you move forward.
I decided to choose me, right? Which is a hard thing to do, especially when you've been conditioned that is selfish, that you're destroying.
Now, when you say conditioned, are you saying like culturally conditioned?
Culturally, yeah.
Religiously?
Like religiously, familial, all that stuff, right?
Right.
We only know what we think we know.
Right.
And for most of us, what we know, we've been taught by our parents and our family and our tribe and where we come from. And then our influences religiously, cities that you live in, culturally. Like I grew up in Seattle, and Seattle culturally is very different than Salt Lake City.
Right.
They're very different, right? And so the influences around you, geographically, you're influenced by where you live. So we are all conditioned, every single one of us. We are born knowing nothing, and then we're told everything that we know up until this point through our family, through whatever media whatever we listen to, what books we read, what we expose ourselves to. And there is a truth that is innately within all of us that comes from the source of light of life, right? Life comes from a source. You cannot deny that, like, there's a life inside of us. When a person dies, all this matter stays here, but the life inside of them goes somewhere.
It leaves, it goes somewhere.
I don't know how anyone argues that there is a body on the ground and the life that was inside of a person is now gone. What is that? Where does that come from?
Right.
There is a source, right? To me, God is just a name for that source. I don't put a lot of religious meaning behind it like I used to.
I've been I've had time over the last couple of years. I've had just religious changes in my mind and in my heart and all these things, and I've been processing these changes.
Right.
And to me, I'm trying right now. I'm looking at what the nature of our Creator is.
Absolutely.
I'm trying to figure out what's the nature. You call him God. I relate really highly to Creator. I still feel this like passionate desire to love him and give thanks for him and have this massive gratitude. But I'm still trying to figure out kind of what is the nature of our Creator.
Absolutely. So I made this decision to start telling the truth, and it was this process of this is me telling the truth, and the truth is very painful for me.
And it wasn't because you were manipulated by religion or family. It was your choice.
I was breaking free of the conditioning, and I was desperately trying to find myself within me. And I don't know why. I just was. I felt that this person was in me, and that she had been buried and buried and buried under expectations of all these other people. And I just wanted to be me. I knew there was this greatness inside of me. For lack of a better word, I could feel, I had accomplished quite a bit in my career, and, had taken a lot and kind of shown myself what I was capable of. And I know that I'm capable of more. I still have bigger dreams and things that I want to do in this life, but I'm okay with them happening at the pace that they need to happen. And so there were a couple pinnacle moments. And so one was, actually, I got COVID in like November of 2020, and I was really, really sick, really, really sick. And I lost, like 10 pounds or something that week because I didn't eat. And
yeah, the COVID diet was really
good,
really
right?
helpful.
And I was like, well, I got a really good head start, and I had scheduled a surgery to have a tummy tuck because when I had my twins, I carried them full term, 2 days past due.
Oh my gosh.
I was like 50 weeks pregnant.
I guess I didn't know you had twins.
I did, yeah.
That's
and
awesome.
It wrecked my body. My abdominal core was a mess, but by this time they were 11 years old, and I had scheduled this
I've
surgery.
seen you in a bikini on the beach of Hawaii. Your abdominal core looks fantastic now.
Well, and this is the thing. I will always own the fact that the reason that that happened is because I eliminated a bunch of skin that was there that had been stretched out. And so I had this surgery coming up. I'd wanted to do it for a really long time. I lost a bunch of weight. I also broke my addiction to caffeine and sugar. I had been a heavy soda drinker for years. I've not had a drop of soda since I had COVID in November of 2020 because it was just something for me that I'm like, I know my addiction to that. And I know I drink coffee like crazy now. So it's not like I ditched the caffeine. The sodium for me was just really hindering my progress with health. Right.
Right.
So I replaced the addiction with another addiction, but I got rid of something that I felt like health-wise was really hindering me. And I started just working out consistently. And the mantra that I had was, I'm fighting for myself.
And what was giving you the motivation to do this? What was your driving force to, hey, I'm going to change this. I'm going to work out?
At the time, I think it was that I felt like I would finally be able to achieve the goal of like the consistent habit of that. I don't know. Let me back up. So for a long time, and this is really what it was. For a long time, I would do these different fad diets. I would sign up for this, like MLM, like drink this drink or eat this packaged food or follow this eating plan. And I could be really strict for like 4 to 6 weeks and then it just blow up, right? And I would always be like, restrict, restrict, restrict. You have to stop doing that. You have to stop. And everything was negative in my life. You have to stop doing that. And I really changed my language and the way that I treated myself to I had like a 3-pack of those wax chocolate donuts, the Hostess donuts covered yesterday, right? So I don't eat perfect, but I eat very disciplined. And then I don't shame myself when I make a decision with food. So I went from restrict, restrict, restrict. You're going to have to like restrict yourself and hurt yourself to have what you want, to I don't care what I weigh. I don't care what I look like when I look in the mirror. I don't care what other people think of me. I just do not care anymore. I just want to feel good and I just want to love myself. And I put a little Post-it note on my mirror in my bathroom that says, I love Erin. And I would look at it and I would force myself to say it out loud. And this was another thing I was telling myself the truth about for the first time.
Those mental incantations.
I didn't love myself. I just didn't. And I thought I did. I wanted to believe I did. But if I was being honest with myself, I didn't. I hated how I looked. I hated my life. I hated a lot of different things. And I had a really good life that it's like I felt guilty that I was so unhappy, right?
So this goes back to, people not earning something because since you've gone through this journey and you've made these huge changes, you've adjusted your habits, you've changed your trajectory of where you're headed. Do you feel like you've earned it? And do you feel, what's your gratitude like for those things?
I feel like I earn it every single day. I don't feel like I've earned it and I'm done. I feel like every single day, if I want this life for myself, I have to show up for myself. Nobody else is going to do it for me.
Right.
Nobody else is going to come in and say, hey, get up and go to the gym. I go to the gym every morning. I lift weights. I hike on the weekends. I run. It is a priority to me in my life because it makes me feel really, really good. It is a de-stressor for me.
It makes you feel good. You're not making somebody else feel good. You're not catering to somebody else's need. You're being the best you for you.
I am doing what I want to do. I lift weights. I lift really heavy. I go to a gym that I love. The owner's there every day. It is like a culture that I love being at, and it has become a critical part of my joy each day, showing up for myself in this way. And really, when I started lifting weights, it was like, I want to hurt myself.
So you do more weightlifting than cardio or anything like that,
for sure.
Right?
And we can get into that another way. For sure. If you want to see a rapid change in your body, stop worrying about running and all the cardio and stuff. Just start lifting heavy weights.
Now, do you still do that 5 minutes of warm up cardio type of thing? Or do you just go straight into lifting?
A little bit. Yeah. There's a little bit of a warm up and getting your muscles ready. You got to take care of yourself. And I still will run and hike. I still have cardio in my life, but the cardio is the de-stressor.
Okay.
It is not the fitness part of it.
Okay. Yeah.
And the fitness part of it for me is the stronger I make my body physically, the stronger I become mentally. And this is a David Goggins principle.
Right.
When you push through lifting something that's heavier than you've ever lifted before, or squatting something, or when you are showing yourself that you can just do this thing that your body thinks you can't, and it's mind over matter, in every other area of your life, you will be stronger.
I just saw this gal who, she can't be more than like $105 or something that I know. She's in our brokerage.
Oh, yeah.
And she just she just squatted like 205
205
pounds. I was like,
yeah, I saw that this morning on Instagram. That was a really inspirational video too.
She's tiny. She just squatted me. Well, I'm not. I'm 195, but she basically squatted me.
Yes,
I was like, holy cow.
She made a reel and she showed when she was anorexic, and she was under 100 pounds and super, but so unhealthy.
Right.
Right. And she did the same thing. She started to choose herself.
Yeah.
Right. And she was like, I am no longer going to do this thing because the world is telling me this is what I have to do to be beautiful.
Right.
I choose me. And she started doing things that make her feel good for her. Right. And, I have my 3 really close friends, some of my best friends. We were all neighbors for a long time. They joke with me like, we love Erin so much, but like, we don't like hanging out with her anymore because she's lost all this weight and she's, like living this life that, and I don't know how to tell my friends that I love and adore, or these people in my life that think that they're limited, that they can't have this and that it's going to cost them so much or require so much. I'm like,
she's living too much of a life of intention.
All right. It's like, just love yourself. Just put yourself first. And don't do what I'm doing because you think if you do what I'm doing, then you'll have the life that I have. That's the wrong reason to do things. You figure out what you love, what speaks to you, what's pulling you in, and just start doing things for yourself because they make you feel good. Don't worry about what the scale says. Don't worry about what size you're going to be. This is what's so interesting, Alma. For years, the smallest size since high school, I was a soccer player and I ate whatever I wanted to. And I was very fit, but I was never a small girl. Mm-hmm. The smallest size I had ever been since high school, probably since I was a senior, was a size 10. And so when this all started, I was like, for years I'd been like, if I could just get back to a size 10, then I'd be enough. I stopped caring at all. I was like, I don't even care. I don't care what size I am. I don't care how much I weigh. I just want to feel good. I just want to be me and love me. I wear like a size 4 or size 6. I never even thought that was possible to me. For me, I didn't even know what I could have. And that is the difference between wanting something because you think that what someone else has is going to make you happy and just wanting what's meant for you. And if you can surrender all the conditioning and the expectations and what you think it will take to have what they have because you think that will make you happy, and just turn to whatever that source of connection is for you and say, I want what is meant for me. I don't care if it's not, I don't care about anything else. I just want what's meant for me.
Can I tell you a story about that? So I just bought this car, right? Mm-hmm. You've seen my car. It's amazing. It's beautiful. It's incredible, right? Uh-huh. And I spent years researching this car and what it was going to be like and all this stuff. And I had people ask me, is this your dream car? And I would be like, no, it's just a car I want, because it's not really my dream car. And I get this car and I have it and I'm driving. I'm really enjoying it for about like 30 days. I'm like stoked on this vehicle, right?
Yeah.
And then I realize this is not the car I want.
Just the one I was focused on for so long, right?
Yeah, I was just focused on it. And I think it was because there was such a hype about it. And it was interesting because I became somebody in the process to get it, which I feel like was positive. But then once I had it, I was like, I don't enjoy this as much as the other car I had. Like I had this classic Porsche, and this classic Porsche excites me and drives me and feeds me more than, and for a car guy, that's a pretty big freaking deal. And I realized I'm just a Porsche guy. Like, this is in my blood. The supercar actually doesn't do for me what the Porsche did. So
you know what's interesting?
Why am I doing this?
Have you read 50 Cent's book, Hustle Harder?
No.
That's a good one. You should read that.
Okay.
So he talks about the process that it took for him. He's a billionaire now because he... Right. I mean, I won't get into it. Read the book. But he talks about all the cars, everything that he's had. His favorite car to this day is the very first luxury car he ever bought. It was a Mercedes. He bought it with drug money when he bought it, But it was the first car that to him represented him becoming this person that he had fought so hard to become. And he had to overcome insurmountable odds to get to where he's at, right?
Right.
He's had to be very, very disciplined. People see 50 Cent as this rapper who, was like a player or whatever. This is a guy who would eat salads, chicken and steak salads for lunch every day, and was very disciplined in his self-care, going to the gym, his health, and taking care of himself so that he could show up and perform at these levels that he wanted to. This is a guy who put a lot of thought into the directions that he was going to take as he started to make money, and had principles and a value system. And he was very, very clear on that. And I'll say to you, the more clear, in fact, my friend Colton is one of my coaches, and he taught me such an important principle recently.
Which Colton who?
Colton Lindsay.
Colton Lindsay. Cool. Yeah. Great
Colton
guy.
Lindsay.
Love him.
Love him to death. And he is just a genuine person, much like you, very much a go-giver, and like wants to help people in life. He was talking to a small group of us about writing down on paper what our value system is, and the core of who we are, and principles and actions that take us closer to being in alignment with our values. And then also how to look at away values, things that were pulling us away from that, so that we could recognize when we were moving away from our value system. And he said, this is the vehicle that will drive you faster to achieving your goals. And he's talking, and I interrupted him, and I was like, Colton, I am not following you. What are you talking about? The vehicle, I'm lost, And
Right.
he said, here, I'll give you an example. Let's say tomorrow I'm like, hey, Erin, I'm going to meet you in Vegas. We're going to Vegas tomorrow. He's like, do you know what your values are? Give me your top 5 values. And I was like, well, I know my top 4. It's me and God, and then my children, and then my career and my business. And then at the time it was my partner. I have a boyfriend. And so my boyfriend, but that's moving up on the list as things progress. At the time it was number 4, and it needed to be number 4. And I was like, I don't have 5, but I have 4. And he was like, that's a good start. You have some, what order your values are in, and you have some definition around them. Tell me more about those. And I told him a little bit, but I couldn't tell much. I said, okay, so tomorrow, based on what you know about your value system, if your value system, that's the vehicle for where you're going, and our destination is Vegas, you're going to hop on a bike tomorrow and you're going to ride your bike to Vegas. And he pulls up this document, this 3-page document that's been a working document for years for him, of like, he has almost like a mission statement, and then his values written out, and what pushes him towards them and what pulls him away from them. And he's like, I'm getting on a jet. I'll be there in like an hour. I'll see you in a day when you get there, because I am so clear on the vehicle that is taking me where I'm going in my life, because I've thought about it, and I've written it down, and I've looked at it, and I've moved things and changed things as the direction of my life moves a little bit. And so I have a general idea of the destination. In some areas, I'm specific on the destination that I'm going, but the vehicle that I'm taking there is moving really fast, because I've become so clear on who I am, what my values are. I will not waver from my core values.
Right.
Right. I don't lie. I don't steal. And you think you have these values, but if you step back and tell yourself the truth, when's the last time you told a lie to someone? Right.
Right.
When's the last time you lied to yourself?
Right.
If you're honest with yourself, all these little things are going to creep up and become more apparent, that you're like, oh my gosh, I am not living in alignment with my values to the level that I could be.
Yesterday. You know, like I had this goal set, I had this mindset, whatever. And, even though like it was Mom's death day, and I was, my brain was just not clicking. I couldn't connect anything. I couldn't finish anything. I just feel like I was still lying to myself. I lied to myself, and having that kind of that drive or that grit to get through it, knowing what your values are, knowing what your vehicle is. Really, you figure out what your identity is.
Yes.
By identifying those things, would you say?
Absolutely. And if you don't take time to think about who you are and how you want to live your life, do you know your identity?
Right.
How do you choose yourself? How do you show up for yourself? How do you put yourself first? How do you have that self-love and that self-care if you haven't even taken the time to think about what it is you really want? What have you been told you're supposed to want your whole life? Is that what you really want?
Right.
Because you've been told your whole life that you should want this and this and this. And if you do this, it's going to take you here. And if you do this, your life will be easy. And it's just not true.
Right.
Your life is going to be hard no matter what. You are going to hit pain points over and over and over again, no matter what. There's nothing you can do to prevent the pain from coming. When the pain comes, have you done the work in advance that you can move through that with joy and peace? It doesn't mean you're not going to feel sadness. Doesn't mean there's not going to be tears. Doesn't mean there's not going to be a period of like having to push through it.
Right.
But are you going to be able to say, it's okay. This is just a part of my process. It's just a part of my journey. It's a part of me becoming who I'm meant to be. And this is okay. It hurts like hell, but it's okay. And I know, because I've been through it before and I've surrendered to it before, that there's going to be growth and there's going to be beauty on the other side. And that is one of the trickiest, most difficult concepts for people to understand, that the stuff that hits us, there's things that are in our control. There's things that are out of our good friend, Danette. She's got 2 kids with cancer right now. How the hell do you have that mindset when you're going through something out of your control like that? But I can tell you, her daughter, who's she has a big following on Instagram. She's an influencer, and she has gotten on her social media, Carly. It's Fierce Carly, if you don't follow her, over and over and over again, and talked about her mindset and how she is going to beat cancer, and how she has this, she was getting, I don't know if it was chemo, but she called it the red devil, and how she was going to beat the red devil, and like this would not control her, and this would not steal her joy. And she would get on very raw and emotional and vulnerable as she was fighting through this thing. And she finished her last chemo treatment. She's going through surgery and her double mastectomy. And she's been very open about how that feels as a woman and how that's affecting her, how losing her hair is affecting her. Just open and raw and vulnerable about this painful thing that's come into her life and her husband's life and her family's life, and how she will not let it steal her joy.
What if life does happen for us?
Exactly.
Right? I mean, Tony Robbins says this. What if life does happen for us? What if even the pains and the challenges and the fears are all gifts,
Absolutely,
for our growth and for our achievement? What if it actually is for us? And I love hearing people like Carly do things like that and see them as an opportunity for gift, or, to be a gift or to grow from it. It's difficult in the time from our perspective, but when someone is in it and they're almost not given a choice, but they still take it as a choice, is staggeringly almost otherworldly to me.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And here's another thing that I'll tell you, and I think Carly gets this, and so many other people. What is the point of going through it if you can't help someone else when they are going through it? And that is why I'm open. That's why I share. That's why I don't hold back, because what's the point of all this growth and everything that I'm experiencing and the pain and all of it if I can't use it to help someone else get through their pain, to help someone else navigate better their life's journey and become who, if I feel like it's almost like not unfair, but like one of the challenges is I have to avoid feeling guilty about how good my life is right now, because I know that there are other people that are still experiencing pain and going through.
Right.
And that doesn't mean that I don't ever feel pain. I do. Right. But I am so blessed in my life. I am so fortunate. I am so happy to be where I'm at right now, knowing that there's a lot of places I want to go still. I'm so full of gratitude all the time. And instead of letting the guilt creep in because other people are experiencing pain and feeling like I shouldn't be this happy when someone else is experiencing pain, in the morning, I will wake up and I will say, God, fill my soul with light and love and help me let it flow to the people around me. Help me spread that love. Help me spread that light to those who might need it. Give me enough to share.
You do this during your meditations?
I do this, yeah.
In the mornings?
Yeah, and I'm not 100%, but when I do it, I feel a difference throughout the day. Phil, you give me your source of light, because I don't have enough on my own. Just overflow me with your light, and then let it flow to the people who might need to pick up on that. To anyone who needs your light, help me shine that to other people, because you've given me this gift of this light and this joy or whatever. Let me share it with other people.
There's so many people that will be hearing this concept and say, that's not realistic.
I know, right?
Doesn't make sense that you could give joy and light and love to other people. And really, I guess that's just how limited are you as an individual? If there's, if people see it that way and they go, oh, there's no, my thoughts are me pushing energy or love or light to other people so they can grow and enjoy as well, isn't really going to help them. Explain why that would, or how that would help them.
Like, I can't remember how you said it at the beginning of this podcast, but why has my message been received the way that it has? I think there's energy inside of all of us, right?
Right.
We are all energetically connected somehow. You can, driving down the freeway, you could have a complete asshole ride your tail, come around you, flip you off.
Right.
And you're either going to have this reaction of like becoming pissed off and angry because you picked up their energy.
Right.
Or you're going to be working on your energy so much to keep your peace and your calm and your joy that you're going to laugh it off and be like, oh, he's having a bad day.
Yeah.
Right.
Right.
You have two choices, right? But you have to have been doing the little work and maintaining these habits to be able to keep that peace. Because even me, I want to get pissed off and be like, you asshole, and like flip them off.
Do you know Troy Critchfield?
A little bit. I
don't know him
super well.
You should know him better.
Okay.
Troy's like one of the best dudes ever. Best hearts probably top 5 best hearts I've ever met in the world. I always want to be around Troy because he has such a high level of love and caring. He came up to a stoplight one day, and he was the car in front of him was just stopped, right? Just stopped at the stoplight. And he's like, oh, that's strange. And all the cars around him are just honking their horns. They're blaring, they're like, what's going on? They're flipping off the car or whatever. And Troy goes, I wonder what's happening with this. He goes, I wonder what's happening. And so he gets out of the car and he walks up to the window and he looks in, and this person is having a seizure.
Oh, wow.
In the car at the stoplight. And convulsing and freaking out. And so Troy proceeds to open the door, put the car in park, help the person out. And to me, it was because of where he was at, where his energy was at.
Absolutely.
Where his gratitudes were at, that enabled him to help someone in that way. And so, yeah, I don't know if my energy that I send out to the world helps the world. I feel like it does. I feel like it helps my wife when I'm meditating and I send that energy to my wife and good thoughts and love and vibes, and I pray, and, I feel like it helps. It certainly helps me. And then when I come across other people in life, it certainly helps them. Just like Troy helped this person when everybody else was flipping them the bird and driving around them as they're dying in the middle of the intersection. So he was able to call EMS and then save this person's life. And I thought, what an amazing thing to be more inquisitive rather than judgmental. Maybe ask a few more questions rather than come to conclusions.
Yeah.
And maybe give and send more love and light out to others, because maybe that's how they'll receive it, is because you sent it out to somebody, you received it yourself, and you're able to serve or help or guide.
Well, and a good way to think about it too is that you're not trying to force it on anyone, but there are people that are seeking, right? There are people who are looking for it. And if you can be a source for the people who want it,
right, just
make it available. You never know how you're going to, who's going to be impacted by a really small action.
There are people that are thirsty for it.
And if you're like, this all sounds foreign to me, because it did for a really long time. I mean, I would say I was 40, 41 before all these concepts started to make sense. And for 10 years, I had been seeking, right?
Right.
I'd been seeking this, but I didn't even know what I was seeking. What I would say is, for me, I started almost demanding, and I use God, demanding from God and talking to him in a way that I would talk to my sister or my best friend,
right,
where the emotion came out. And I had been taught this way of like praying,
right,
that it was very scripted and very like, this
very
is how you pray, and very specific. And I was like, God, if you are real, you better show yourself to me. If you are there and you really can't, like, I am dying inside right now. I don't know what, I am so alone. I am so overwhelmed. I'm hurting so bad. If you're there, if you're real, talk to me. And I would say, talk to me,
Freaking respond to me.
Yeah. And I would like pull over to the side of the road, just sobbing in my car, just kind of crying out to God. And I'd feel like this peace and calm, and I'd write stuff in my notes. I have notes that, are like little personal revelation to me. And then I started doing breath work with Lehi Mehler, right?
Lehi Mehler, yeah.
And figured out even better how to get to a deep state of meditation, how to really get in touch with my soul. And
when I started doing breath work, I was like, how did I freaking miss this?
Right?
All of these years. Because my first
Yes.
breath work, I was 42
Yeah.
with Lehi.
Yeah.
I've probably done 20 of them now.
Yes.
And I'm like, how did I not know this was available for me to tap
Yes.
into just by breathing, that I could tap into this part of my soul that I had no idea even freaking existed. And by the way, any of you who have not done breath work, I highly recommend it, but
Absolutely.
find the experience. And I know there's a lot of people that do this type of stuff, but find the experience that you can connect to, because the healing that has come for me through breath work and the identification of kind of who I am has really been staggering to me. I had no idea.
Well, we have all been conditioned to go to other people for answers, right?
Right.
Hey, Alma, what do you think I should do? This thing happened and it's stressing me out. What do I do about it? Hey, George, what do I do about this? Hey, Taylor, what do I do about this? What do I do about this thing?
Right.
Tell me, give me the answers. And the answers for you are inside of you. You have all the answers. You just have to know how to get to them, right? And that's the difference, is once you learn to trust yourself and you learn how to tap into your soul and get those answers, and you learn and you practice the habits and you repeat the patterns that get you there, and you become more comfortable. You know, it's the same thing as starting to lift weights. I started with 10-pound dumbbells, right?
Right.
Now I can do 20 to 25 over the course of 2 years. It's easier for me. I can lift heavier. It's the same thing with this soul work, right? Where you're getting in touch with yourself and starting to trust yourself in these answers, right? And there's two different things that I always say. You do not know what you do not know. So if you're listening to us talk about this and it sounds so foreign, and you're like, this is so
freaking weird and kooky.
Well,
yeah.
At one point, we didn't know.
Right.
We didn't know what we didn't know. And you will only know the truth as you've received it, right?
Right.
You only know the truth based on you've been told is the truth.
Right.
If you want to know the real truth, turn inward to yourself, because your soul knows the truth for you.
Yeah, because for years, I mean, and I grew up kind of, in this environment where my dad was like, "Oh, that's a bunch of hogwash." Blah,
Yes.
blah, blah. And I'm like, "Wait, but it was." I read this quote the other day from this girl, just randomly. She wrote online, and she goes, if we all believe that there are spirits roaming around on Earth, if we believe in ghosts, I guarantee there's aliens.
Oh, 100%.
Like, that makes so much sense. But I was just like, yeah. And then you have people like maybe like, our parents or somebody like that. They're like, oh, that's hogwash, or the breath work, the whatever. And I'm like, wait, but you taught me my whole life that there were spirits roaming around us, there's literally ghosts in the room. Like, so that seems kooky to me. But when I can take my own body and breathe my own breath and get this amazing mental perfect picture, which is actually ironically why I chose you. I was up at Louie's a couple weeks ago, up at his cabin, and we were doing breath work, and I got into this deep state of thinking. And when I do breath work, I'm able to just like pound out all these ideas out of my head. Right. It's the most clarity I have in my week when I do that.
Right.
And I thought of a whole list of people that I wanted to have a part of this podcast, of the Clozer Cult podcast. And I was like, first name on the list, Erin Mehler. Like, boom, easy. Knew exactly who to choose. It was awesome. And then I was able to just boom, 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 boom. And I have this list of people that I'm going to be inviting in.
I love it.
And, for whatever reason, I don't know what the reasons are. For me, it's a calling. For me, it's, hey, you have to put this information out. If I can help one person, it makes perfect sense to me,
And that's what it's all about, right? Once you start to uncover this stuff for yourself, and you experience the transformation that occurs when you unlock this part of life that you didn't know exists, you want everyone to have it.
Right.
You want everyone to feel this good. And people are like, what are you talking about? How good do you feel? What is this? And they see us, they see you walking around. They're like, she has completely changed.
Right.
I mean, I was like 220 pounds 2 years ago. I've lost over 60 pounds, and I don't even care about that at all. Honestly, like the weight, it just was a part of the
don't
process.
Take this
it
wrong.
was a shedding.
I'm surprised you only lost 60 pounds, because the way it changed everything about you to lose 60 pounds has been unbelievable.
It's like 60 pounds of, body,
and
like 1,000 pounds of years of conditioning and like self-doubt and,
Yeah. And it's not, don't get me wrong. 60 pounds is a huge feat. I've done 30 and it was a huge feat to get 30 pounds off of me. To do 60 is a huge feat, but it looked like 120.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
And the bigger feat is to finally believe that this is me.
Right.
And that it's me because this is who I am. It's not for anyone else.
Not for
it's
anyone
not for
else.
the cultural expectations. It's
Right.
not because I'm trying to keep up with anyone else. This is just who I am.
Did I tell you? Did I tell you when I saw you that I didn't even recognize who you were? I had no clue who you were because through COVID and all that stuff. Those times you and I didn't see each other.
Yeah,
we hadn't been in the office. I had moved into this office about a year ago.
Yeah.
So there was when I saw you for the first time after you had your transformation. I honestly didn't know who the hell you were, but you were like, hi, and I was like, oh, hi, how's it going? And I'm like, who's this chick? And then it blew my mind because you had changed, not just your looks.
My light changed.
Your light changed. The way you carried yourself changed. And somebody said, I can't remember who I went to. I was like, who is that right there? And they're like, that's Erin Mehler. Duh, you dummy. Like, and I'm all, what do you mean? Like,
no, it's not.
I can't, I know Erin. That's not Erin, you know? You transformed. And I was like, that your light and your soul and your excitement and your joy and your body and everything was just in alignment and had so much more rhythm to it than what I was used to seeing you as.
And the phrasing that I use, and this just naturally comes to me. I'll see pictures. I mean, my kids, my 13-year-old twin girls, they're 13-year-old girls, right? They'll pull up a picture from like 2 or 3 years ago where it was very heavy and they'll show it to me and start laughing, And I'm like, okay, we need to work on this. But I'll see that. And when I was living in that space, that mental space, in that body, I was so ashamed.
When you say her, you feel like you were
so separate.
She was somebody else.
That girl is dead. I love her. I have so much respect.
She got you to where you are now.
She got me. She carried so much and got me to where I am now. She fought tooth and nail for me. But when I was her, I didn't love her. But I love her now. I respect her now. I'm grateful. I'm so grateful to her now. And for what she did for me all those years, for all the pain that she carried, for all the things for how hard she fought for herself so that I could be me now. But I am so different from the inside out that I'm not her. She gets to stay in the past, and she's this beautiful part of my past. And I will always cherish her and love her. And she couldn't do it for herself. She couldn't. I mean, she tried to, but she could not love herself.
Stop it.
She had to break free of it, And looking back now, I'm like, I love you. You got me here. Thank you. But you get to stay in that chapter of your life. That chapter is closed. This is the new chapter. And it's the self-love and the habits and the doing things for me because they are authentically 100% for me that gives me confidence that I get to stay this person. I get to just become more and more who I'm meant to be and fulfill the purpose. I just believe that every single person on this planet has a purpose.
And some people are like, that's selfish, right? For me, for changing me. No, it goes back to that quote, be the best you for me and I'll be the best me for you.
And I'll break this down for you a little bit. If you do not put yourself first and give yourself that gift, if you don't make the decisions that are right for you and tell people no and live the life that you are meant to have, that you are destined to have, you will not let anyone else you love do that. You won't let your kids do that.
Hell.
You won't let your spouse do that. You won't let your parents, your siblings, your best friends, the people you love the most. If you cannot do it for yourself, you will not allow them to do it for themselves. And so you have to love yourself first.
Hell, I never
if you
thought
don't,
of that.
you won't let anyone else do it. And that is the gift that you give to the people you love when you choose yourself.
Holy shit. I don't even know how to top that. What an incredible thought.
Yeah. It's taken a long time to understand why you take care of yourself, but that's it.
You won't let anybody else do it.
You won't be able to love anyone else beyond the level that you love yourself. And what a gift to be able to say. I just wrote my son this text last night. I got home and he had this cute note on my bed, like, love you, Mom, good night. And I sent him this text and I said, I'm so proud of the work that you've been doing lately, how you've been showing up for yourself. He's been going to the gym, he's been reading listening to audiobooks, and said, I'm so proud of you and everything that you've been doing. But aside from all of that, I want you to be proud of you. And I want the things that you're doing to mean something for you, because if it's not for you, it doesn't mean anything. Do this stuff for you because you choose it for yourself. Right. I can't give that to him if I haven't done that. And he sees me doing it, and he's learning how to do that for himself because he's watching his mom do it. And it hasn't been easy. It's been painful. It's been hard. We've been through some really tough stuff, even in the last couple months. Right. But there's so much growth and beauty that comes from it because it's all centered in love.
Wow. That was a bombshell. I didn't know you were going to bring me this information today. I love that. Thank you for bringing that up. Yeah. That thought process seems so correct to me. I mean, we always have these thought processes of like how things are supposed to be. That thought process of, oh yeah, I'm going to, the sacrificial lamb. You cannot be the best person for others. You can't let anybody around you be the best version of themselves if you're not being the best version for yourself. Correct. I'm going to write that down after this. I'm going to write that down and like have a quote on my wall for it.
Yeah. But that's really it, right?
Yeah. Yep. And that's why people talk so much and get such a high out of self-improvement, self-love, growth, because it serves other people in such a way. Yeah. Our friend Jeff Wilcox, who lost his sweet wife, Kimmy. Yeah. I sent him that quote, I'm going to be the best me for you if you be the best you for me. Yes. And I thought I can't relate to him because I haven't lost a spouse, but I hope that helped his thought process because he's gone into these all different methods of thought as he's had to deal with this. And I can't even imagine losing a sibling or a spouse, Yeah. And the transformation that he's gone through, I've been watching him slowly shift over to kind of this new Jeff. Yes. And he probably doesn't see it as quickly as we have, right? Because we haven't gone through those moments and those hours and those days of pain, but it means so much, I think, probably to Kimmy that he is pushing through so hard. Yeah. And that he is looking for that light, or he's looking for that better option for his kids. He's picking up the slack. He's being Mr. Mom, you know? So I don't know. I don't know where I was exactly going with that. But
I had a conversation with him where he was explaining to me some of the growth that he's experienced, right? And he lost his wife very unexpectedly. And they had just a really unique, cool relationship.
Yeah, just like really unique, so dynamic.
So very much in love. And he would say, why not me? It should have been me, like not her. I wish it would have been me. And I think it was at a breath work that he had this.
Has he gone? Has he done that?
He has gone? Yeah.
Oh,
he's
good.
done breath work. Yeah. He had this kind of epiphany where he was like, I would never want her to experience what I've experienced. I would never have wanted her to lose me.
Wow.
And feel the pain that I have endured. And I know she's at peace. She's at peace. She didn't have to feel this pain. I would so much rather it be me here carrying this pain and this hurt and this burden than for her have to go through this. And so he was able to kind of like transition this messaging that so many people believe of that person that's gone is they lost something, or
right.
And it's
so sad that they're gone.
It is.
It's actually harder that they stayed.
Yes.
And the other one was the one to go.
The ones that are hurting and carrying that are the people that are here. And so I thought that was just such a beautiful perspective that he had formed for himself as he's going through this process of healing.
It's all about the way it's all about how you're looking at it, how you are. Tony Robbins calls it how you what meaning you're attaching to it. And I think sometimes it's not even just attaching a meaning. Sometimes it's literally having like an aha moment.
Exactly. So anyway,
Your camera wanted to kick off on me here. Let me see if I can get it turned on. Sometimes it times out.
Might be done. It's like you guys are done.
I'm finished with you. I think that one like times out sometimes.
Gotcha.
Yeah, you're good. But yeah. Okay. Well, tell me real quick before we go. Since this has all gone down, since you've kind of chosen to adjust your life, change your health, change your everything.
Mm-hmm.
What does life look like now as far as your business is concerned?
This is the great thing, Alma, is that I don't know, but I know it's going to be awesome. Like I don't know exactly how everything is going to unfold, but I know the next step. I know what the next 6 months look like. I just had my.
It's about you have harmony.
I have harmony, and I'm like I'm okay not knowing for the first time in my life where I end up. I'll tell you that on Monday night I had the first solo client appreciation event I've ever had. I've always done it with other agents, so a ton of people will show up in this big event that's super impressive.
Right.
And I did this pizza in the park event at a local park close to where a lot of my clients live, and I had about 40 or 50 people show up. And I was talking to my boyfriend who was there helping me after, and we're kind of like just organically it's becoming like this husband and wife thing. He's also a real estate agent, you know? And I'm like, how cool is it going to be to look back someday at this event that like 40 people showed up to, that we threw away like 10 pizzas after because we had so much pizza, and there's like 1,000 people there. Like I know that what we're building is big. I know that the future is very, very bright. I know that there's a lot of momentum happening right now, and I am in surrender to whatever this is supposed to be. So
what's your message? If you were to say there is a message that you would want to give to someone who is either struggling in real estate as a veteran or that's brand new, or in sales in general that is trying to get to their next step, what would you say? What would you tell them?
Focus less on what you think you're supposed to be doing in the business, and focus more on working on yourself, fighting for yourself, improving yourself. Make yourself stronger and better. Lift heavier weights in business. Listen to more, attend more, fill your brain with more that's going to push you in the right direction, and just trust the process.
Stop trying to prove yourself and start improving yourself.
Stop focusing on the stuff that's going to waste your time and start focusing on just simple habits every single day consistently that are going to make you stronger. Make yourself strong mentally, make yourself strong physically, show up. If you just show up consistently every single day in the few different areas of your life, do something small every day.
Just break through small every day.
Physically, mentally, intentionally in business, doing your business practices, whether it's prospecting or whatever that is, do a small amount every single day consistently, and then surrender. Trust the process. Trust that it will work.
You are amazing.
Well, thank you. So are you.
Thank you for your time. Thank you for being here. I'm choked up even thinking about some of the things we talked about. Sorry. Thank you so much.
Yes.
You're such an influence to me and so many people. And I am just so stoked for this to go out so people can listen to you and your story and be inspired by it. I love seeing these new agents come through, and I actually love seeing them be fearful of the market and what's going to happen in the market.
Right.
So, because it's like, no, it's okay. You guys will be all right. We'll get this figured out.
Exactly.
So thank you guys for listening. Again, this is Clozer Cult, and we will see you guys on the next one. And if you guys want to follow Erin Mehler, where do we follow Erin Mehler at?
Well, Erin.Mehler is my Instagram.
Okay.
Start there. Everything else is on there. That's
Erin.Mehler.
Yep.
And spell your last name.
Mehler.
Beautiful. All right, guys, this is Clozer Cult. Hit us up on Facebook, YouTube, Instagram, and right here on Clozer Cult Podcast. I'm your host, Alma Merrill. We'll see you guys next time.